I have been upgrading a Zig 013 project to Zig 014, and it's actually not very complicated. We can take a look at it in just a second. But one of the things that I've wanted to do for this project for a while is generate checksums as a part of the release process, and I thought now would be a great time to tackle that. So that's what we're going to do today. Okay, on my screen, I've got my ADL project here. If you're unfamiliar with this project, it is pronounced ADL, as in a status affliction from Final Fantasy. If you're familiar with that, it also has an actual term or definition as well. But ADL is ADL, and it's a tool for managing ADRs, Architecture Decision Records. We won't spend too much time on that, but the short and sweet here is that it's a Zig project. I use GitHub workflows to build out a Linux ARM version, a Linux x86 version, a Mac ARM version, a Mac x86 version. There's supposed to be a Windows version in here too. License, source code, all that fun stuff. I would like to provide checksums for these, so we're going to work on that today. But before we do, I just want to mention a couple changes. So let me make sure this is in focus. Okay, cool. Oh, that's way too big. Why did that happen? So this is it. So this was me changing to support Zig 014. It's a very small update, but I want to continue working on this project, and I would like to continue working on it with Zig 014. So some small changes that were made in case you haven't done the Zig 014 upgrade for any of your projects yet. The short and sweet is, I think the only thing that needs to change is the name needs to go from a string to an enum. I have not put a version in here, so I'm adding one finally. You can support, you can use a minimum Zig version here. I don't know if it's actually used or if it's advisory only. It was advisory only in 013, so it might be the same in 014, but it seems helpful to keep track of the supported Zig version. There's also a fingerprint, which has security implications, so I've added a fingerprint for this one and updated the dependency. On the dependency side, what's kind of interesting is I realized that they actually named their module datetime and not Zig datetime. So now that they have a build zigs on as well, I have to respect their module name. So I'm binding it to Zig datetime, but I needed to update this as well. And I'm also passing target and optimize options to this dependency. It's a small change. Okay, so that's cool. I'd like to get a new version out with those updates. And those updates would be great if they had a checksum too. I have my very first issue on this is need to produce checksums for the releases, so let's do that now. I'm going to pull up Vim. I'm going to go into GitHub Workflows Release YAML. And what I've got going on here is actually really simple. So if you haven't seen this yet, we should probably update this to 014. Okay, so all I've got going on here is a GitHub workflow. Its name is release. I run this on push with tags, any tag version. It's a job. The job is called release. It has a name called release. It runs on Ubuntu latest. It has permissions to write to the GitHub repo. This is important if you are publishing releases. And then some steps. First step, clones the repository. You're almost always going to want to do that. Installs Zig. Builds Windows, builds Mac ARM, builds Linux x86, and builds Linux ARM. These are just proxying commands to Zig build with some specific flags. And then I have release. So release is the piece that uses this action GitHub release, GitHub action, and it takes care of uploading these files to that release. So that's working and everything's pretty great. What I'd like to do though is add another step here called like generate checksums. And I want to run, we're going to run multiple actions here. Let's just cd into zig out /zig out. It's right below. I'm not sure why I'm stumbling over that. /bin. And then we will SHA-256 ADL Windows x86 into checksums.txt. We can yank this, paste this, and update all of these. So we don't have Windows to worry about anymore. Now we have Mac x86 And we need to update that to be 2 arrows so that we're appending, not overwriting. Go ahead and take care of that in all of these. Okay. And on top of that, we have ADL Mac ARM, ADL Linux x86, ADL Linux ARM. So I think that should generate the checksums, but we actually need to add those as well. So what we can do here is add one more file, zig out bin checksums.txt. And I think that should work. So what we're going to do to test it out is right quit. I'm going to open up, I probably do need to open up build zig. And in the spirit of, sorry, I want the Zon file. In the spirit of maintaining this properly, let's update this to 10. Go ahead and right quit. Keep seeing this LSP error. I'm not sure why that keeps showing up. If I run zig build, it builds successfully, so I think it might just be an issue with the LSP server. Not too sure. Anyways, now that we have this updated, we can check out the diff right quick, updating the version of zig we're building, the checksums piece that we just added, adding the checksum to the release, and then the build changes that I've mentioned already. I'm going to go ahead and commit this straight to main, like a, we'll go with Bohemian, that sounds fun, and upgrade to zig 014. Go ahead and give this a push, get our changes up there. And then it's worth mentioning that your case, and then it's worth mentioning your software is different than mine. Arguably, this doesn't really deserve a new release since it's just a new version of zig that we're supporting. In theory, our file size might get even smaller, so it might be worth it. But if you're just adding something to the release process, maybe it's not necessarily worth re-releasing your software with that just to trigger that new thing. That's maybe more philosophical and something that you can figure out on your own. But let's go ahead and give this a shot. So I actually don't remember what the tag format looks like for this project, so let's find out. V0010. So we've got V0010. We can push tags. Let that push. That should have kicked off this action, and let's watch and see if this action does what it's supposed to do. When programming, I can't seem to get anything right on the first try, and this is another case of that. So I have a typo here. I've got SHA-256. This should actually be SHA-256 sum. So let's fix that. Okay, we've updated that. Let's give this another push. And do a little bit of bad tag sorcery here. Let me make sure that this stuff failed. Generate checksums. So it shouldn't have published a new release. Correct? Correct. No new release. Great. So let's git push delete origin and then v0010. And then we also need to delete that locally. So we can do git tag delete v0010. Whoops. And bad git sorcery perhaps. We can push this. And then we can do git tag v0010 and git push tags one more time, and we'll let this run again. And I think it should pass this time, but we'll find out. It did fail once more. This one's actually interesting. I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. I didn't see that ADL Windows x86 executable that I was expecting to see. And I think that is a sign of a larger problem. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to pull up the release one more time, workflows release. And what we're going to do is start by removing the Windows one from now. And we'll add it back once I figure out why I'm not able to successfully build on Windows. So maybe very first thing is we take a look and see if there's any indication as to what's going on here. Kind of looks like it succeeded. ADL Windows x86, ADL Windows x86. Yeah, in theory, it should have succeeded. Okay, I don't know what the issue is there. That's a little out of the scope of this video. Maybe that's something I can look into and report back in on at some point. So we're gonna update release file one last time, at least for this. Give this a nice push. Git push, delete that tag, and then we will also git tag, delete, retag it, git push tags. The weird tag history manipulation stuff that I'm doing maybe isn't the best practice, but it's a small project that I guess I can't say that only I work on at this point because I've had a couple more contributions, but I don't think they're going to be too concerned that a tag has appeared, then disappeared, then appeared, then disappeared. Great news, caching works extremely well, and you can see here that it's already succeeded at everything that it needs to do. We can see that it's also uploaded a checksums.txt file, and now if we go look at ADL over here, we should be able to see v0010. Excellent. Checksums text, and let's crack this open and see if it's what we would expect. Yeah, that is what we would expect. Excellent. And then just to clarify, what we can do to prove this out is that I can grab this checksum here. So the correct way to do this, I guess, would be to grab ADL Mac ARM here and actually do the checksum there. So if I SHA-526 sum, let's see if I can do this without exposing everything in my downloads folder. ADL Mac ARM. Whoops. We can see that we have that value, and then this is the value from the text file. So they are correct. There was no tampering or anything like that that has happened. Also, I haven't even mentioned this yet, but maybe I should talk about this. Why would you even want to provide a checksum with an open source library to begin with? Okay, so providing a checksum is important for a couple different reasons. So the first is that you get integrity verification. So this is literally what it sounds like. It allows the user to verify the integrity of the library that they downloaded to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with or corrupted during transit. Another example of this happening is, sometimes you have network issues or storage problems can lead to file corruption. So having that checksum in place allows you to check that the file that you're about to execute is actually what you believe it to be. So the thing that you downloaded. Maybe you're not exposed to, like a man-in-the-middle attack or anything like that. Hopefully no one is. But you could have other issues with your system that could lead to a version of this executable that maybe is not the one that you would expect. Additionally, there are attack vectors where you could try to modify a library to introduce vulnerabilities or malicious code. We've seen quite a few of those over the past couple of years. So by providing a checksum, you know exactly what version you were working with. And, if someone said, well, I know version 0010 is a good version, how do you know that you actually have 0010? Well, you also check the checksum and make sure that the version you've downloaded SHA-256 sums to the same output, and that helps with that. Lastly, it's really about trust and authenticity too. When I see that there are checksums provided, it makes me feel a little more confident that I'm not in the future going to be exposing myself to vulnerabilities or exploits or tampering or attackers or things of that nature, simply because I know that I can check the checksum if I ever have doubts. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. I know this is a bit of a detour from what we normally talk about. I've just been so swamped with all sorts of random things the past couple of weeks and feeling actually a little sick the past couple of days too. So hopefully I will be able to get back to more regularly scheduled Zig programming soon. Thanks, and have a great day.